Hello, and thank you for logging in and taking one of our online LSS study skills workshops. In this presentation, I will be covering tips and strategies regarding note-taking in lectures. My name is Karina, and I'm a fourth-year student in a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in anthropology. I will be guiding you through some helpful guidelines for note-taking in lectures. Here we go. As you can see, today we will be focusing on 3 issues. First, I'll present the challenges with note-taking in lectures. Second, I will present tips for deciding what to write and the importance of active listening. And third, I'll talk about your options for taking notes effectively, including the lecture types that profs use and whether or not using a laptop is a good option for you. Note-taking can be challenging for many students and are definitely skills that you will continue to improve and refine throughout your degree. So let's get started. Just before we do, you should have already printed the Stop, Start, Continue handout, which was posted as a PDF on the homepage. If you don't have this printed, please stop the workshop and do so. Restart when you have the sheet in hand and a pen. You need this handout because your task throughout this workshop is to 1. See if you can pick out things that you are currently doing that may be inhibiting your success. These will go in the stop box. 2. You should also be listening for things that you are doing well. These will go in the continue box. And then 3, you need to listen for things that you want to start doing. Try and find at least 2 or 3 of the tips or strategies that I'll present today, and then put them into the start box. By writing down the behaviors or strategies that you want to change, you are creating a plan for yourself and will already be one step closer to becoming a better student. At the end of the workshop, you'll have time to review what you've put down and think about when you can start implementing these changes. An important concept to understand is the process for learning. Academic success requires that you engage in this process, and for most students, it requires 3 main skills: reading, listening, and note-taking. These are the kind of activities that you engage in throughout the term and are required for you to reach your full potential in your studies. Today, we're looking at the second step in this process, attending class and taking good, comprehensive lecture notes, which is why our very first tip, and arguably the most important, is to go to class. This presentation assumes that you will attend your classes and take advantage of the tips I present to you today. Another general tip is to not rely on others' notes if you don't have to. There is no substitute for being there to listen and learn as the professor teaches. Now, the first topic we will address is the challenges with note-taking in lectures. Think about the class you're in that is the most difficult to take notes for, and ask yourself why that might be. There are several challenges involved in effective note-taking, and many of them are very common. Firstly, professors often speak quickly, or they may skip through their slides too fast for you to follow along. For this, there is not much you can do other than ask the prof to slow down. Just ensure that you have all your resources ready to use when you go to class. It may also be difficult to pay attention when there are many distractions in the classroom. You may find it helpful to sit near the front of the class or away from classmates which have a tendency to distract you. Some students may also find it difficult to decide what to write, as there is a general hurry to write everything that the professor says down, and sometimes it is hard to sort out the most important information as you listen and write. Note organization can also be challenging, but will prove very important when it comes time to study. And finally, it can be intimidating taking notes about materials or topics that you do not yet understand. Deciding what to include in your lecture notes is the first half of developing your skill set in this area. In order to determine this, you need to develop your listening skills. Being an effective listener will ensure that you are able to understand and process the information and pick out the key concepts and ideas that you will need to record. This diagram demonstrates the factors that contribute to being an active listener. There are 4 considerations that you need to make when listening. They are the subject complexity, the speaker, the environment, and the presentation itself. If you are receiving new information, reading the text and familiarizing yourself with the lecture topics will make it easier for you to listen. Then, you need to consider the speaker, including their style, gestures, and the way they emphasize points. Knowing how your professor articulates the main points of his or her lecture is key, and will require you to pay close attention. The environment is the next factor for you to consider, and will allow you to assess if you will be just listening to the professor, or if they will be interacting with the class. Finally, you need to consider the presentation style itself. such as the visual aids used by the professor, including PowerPoint or showing a movie. Knowing what to expect by taking in all four considerations will help keep you focused on what the instructor is saying. So, what can you do to be an active listener? You will find that, when compared to passive listeners, active listeners will display certain characteristics. While we go through the following list, try to imagine which of the strategies you can use in your classes. Active listeners will usually look for interesting aspects within information, and for new perspectives on information that they are already familiar with. They will also focus on the lecture content, as opposed to the way the information is delivered, and will only make judgments after the class while reviewing their course notes. They listen for everything, and therefore listen with intent. Active listeners also make the lecture personally meaningful. They stay focused and will have already read through the assigned readings and thought about the content before each lecture. It is also a great idea to review your notes to refresh before and after attending each class in order to absorb the greatest amount of information that you can. When it comes to deciding what to write in your notes, you want to ensure that you are listening for the facts and details and writing them down in your own words. You will also need to listen for the professor's specific perspective and the way the professor is approaching the material. All of these cues will enable you to identify what the really important information is and determine what you will need to record for future reference. Keeping in mind the professor's approach, there are some signs that the instructors may test you on a specific concept they present in their lecture. You should always write it down if the professor repeats a concept, writes it on the board or overhead, points gestures or changes his or her tone of voice for emphasis, makes a direct reference to the textbook, or asks the class to make sure everyone understands. Think about some of your classes. Can you remember any of these strategies being used? Many professors will even combine these signs to ensure the information is clearly emphasized. If you want to make sure that you are taking effective notes, you should consider using the SQ3R method. It ties back to the fact that learning and note-taking is an ongoing process. If you want good notes for reference in assignments and studying, you need to ensure you are creating good class notes on an ongoing basis. There are 3 times that you should be taking notes, the first of which is before class, when you should survey and question. This involves preparing and introducing yourself to the topic to be discussed and making a list of any questions you might have for the professor. Then, during class, you need to write down the additional information and examples that the professor presents. Finally, after class, you should reduce your previous notes into short form. Reciting and rewriting them will solidify them in your memory. You can also reflect on new information and how it fits into the class, and review any outstanding questions you may have by discussing them with classmates or the TA in a discussion group. The best way to have good notes is to plan ahead and stay organized. You can do this by making sure you have a good binder and are using a standard note-taking format, like this example. As you can see, you can start each page by putting the date, class number, and the chapter or topics you are covering at the top of the page. Then, in the margin of the page, you could put in key terms or ideas, and to the right, you can record the important content from the readings. And, at the bottom of the page, you would then be able to write any questions you have, or list any tasks to complete before the next class. This way, you're sure to have all the information you need, and it will be easy to understand when it is in a consistent format. Now, once you get to class, some other tips for note-taking include printing out PowerPoint slides or lecture notes so you can bring them with you to class. You can also try writing notes in your own words and only copying the key terminology. You can use highlighting, underlining, or any method you prefer to draw attention to the important points, and also be sure to add any examples to your notes that the professor provides in class. Finally, a big time saver is to use abbreviations and symbols for words that you commonly write. Using abbreviations and symbols is also called writing in shorthand. Here are some examples. Many students use these to ensure efficiency in their note-taking. Are there any short forms that you use as you write your notes? You may even want to come up with short forms of your own that apply to commonly used terms in the courses in your major. Just to reiterate, after class, you will be able to reduce, recite, review, and reflect on the notes that you took. It is always helpful to summarize the information you have learned and try to commit it to memory in smaller doses, rather than trying to review all your notes for the first time before the exam. This will also allow you to think about how the information relates to the broader themes of the course and make important connections in class material. 20 minutes per week of the 4 R's will help you prevent stress and save you time in the long run. Give it a try. Let's take a moment now so that you can jot down your ideas on how you can improve your note-taking skills. For me, my best strategy comes into play in the recite and review stage, as I always try to rewrite my notes for each class at the end of each month. That way, come December and April, I only have 3 sets of notes to review and further reduce. Also, when I am rewriting my notes, I usually try to read them aloud. I find this helps me remember the specific details more easily because I have to process the information multiple times. I review the information once in order to be able to say the words, and again as I hear them. Our next topic is to review the 3 kinds of lectures that professors use to convey course material. They are straight lecture, slides, or outline lectures. Since they are all different, there are specific strategies that you should try for each one. Think of your current professors. Which kind of lectures do they use? When you take notes in a lecture where the prof does not use visual aids, in other words, a no-notes lecture, you should try to organize your notes with clear headings as the topics or discussion change. You should also summarize and abbreviate the information that the professor is providing, as these lectures can tend to have a faster pace than others. It might also be helpful to use your notes from readings as a guide, so you can just add your lecture notes into the notes you already have. When you are taking notes in a lecture that uses slides or PowerPoint, you should print off the slides as handouts with some room to add in written notes beside them. You will also be able to review the slides in advance, expand on the bullet points in your own words, and add in examples from the lecture or readings. It is also important to pay attention to the graphs or illustrations in the slides, as they may also contain noteworthy information. Finally, when you are taking notes in a lecture where the prof gives you an outline of topics for each class, you should try to print it out before class, leaving ample space between each heading. This will also allow you to add in subheadings, and it may be a more effective way to record the information in list form. You may find that outlines are also a great tool to use for review, as they give you a brief, accurate summary of the information covered in each lecture. The next topic I'll present is a comparison of handwriting versus using laptops to record lecture notes. Here we can see a comparison between the 2 methods. While we review the pros and cons of each, think about which method you use and whether or not it works for you. When people handwrite their notes, they are usually able to take down the information faster, as people generally cannot type as fast as they can write. They may also find it easier to multitask handwriting and listening, and to edit and organize written notes after the class. Handwriting also reinforces content and helps you retain more information to memory. You may also find that you prefer being able to flip through your binder to find previous notes, and you can also use shorthand and abbreviations more often with handwritten notes. On the other hand, the Cornell Method template is available to download into Microsoft Word, which can easily format your notes for you. However, there is always the temptation of instant messaging, checking Facebook, sending a tweet, or checking other internet sites. Another advantage is that typos are always underlined, but this can also be distracting. You will also find that you will not be able to copy diagrams or graphs as quickly, or be able to use the special characters, fonts, or text needed for some science courses. But one big advantage is that your notes are always legible and are easier to share with classmates. Whichever method you choose, remember there is no right way to take notes. It just depends on what works best for you. Now that you know all about being a great note taker, let's review what we've learned. We've looked at the possible challenges in taking notes in lectures. We talked about how to decide what information to write. And finally, we reviewed how to record your notes, talked about different professors' lecture styles, and what your preference is when it comes to using laptops or handwritten notes. Now that we've covered the material from the workshop, take a couple of minutes to review what you've put down on your Start, Stop, Continue page. What are the things that you need to stop doing? What are the things that you need to continue doing? These should be things that you are doing well and enable you to achieve your potential. And lastly, what are the things that you want to start doing? These should be new skills or strategies that you can implement. For these items, I would ask that you take a minute and write down when you are actually going to start doing them. Today, tomorrow, Remember, the sooner you implement these new strategies and skills, the better. I would also encourage you to come into LSS to attend one of our workshops in person. We offer a wide variety of topics to meet any student's needs. Workshops are available at varying times throughout the week, including evenings. To see the full schedule, please use the My Success link on Carleton Central and select LSS Workshops. Please note that while you are encouraged to register in advance, it is not required. As an added incentive, if you attend 5 or more in-person study skills workshops, you will earn your Skills for Academic Success certificate, which can then be recorded on your co-curricular record. And if you're looking for more personalized support to develop your study skills, I would like to offer you the opportunity to sign up for a one-on-one study skills appointment. Appointments are 45 minutes long, and you can talk with a study skills specialist about one of the following topics: time management, procrastination, academic reading and note-taking, exam preparation, memory and concentration, listening and note-taking, and learning styles. To schedule an appointment with a study skills specialist, you need to go to the LSS Help Desk on the 4th floor of the Macodrum Library. Finally, if you would like to receive the slides for this workshop, please send an email from your Connect email account to learningsupport@carleton.ca. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best with your note-taking.